Reconnection successful. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. We went off it, now we're back. BOOZHOO NANABOOZHOO. Yeah. Anyway, I wasn't talking about anything important anyway. American Indian movement. And then, I don't know. That's when powwows became a thing again. People started learning drum and dance and relearning the old songs, the language. The reservation schools, cultural schools got started. And I don't know. I'm just kidding when they say they won't teach this. I'm sure they're teaching. There's probably pictures of Dennis Banks on the walls. Social study classes now. Hey, Kaya Thunder. Yay, we're back. Yeah, we're back, Kaya. I'm sorry. I think we need a new router. Really? Yeah. Does computer technology just wear out? I don't know. I don't know if this thing should be set for low latency, high latency, ultra low latency. What is latency? I don't know. If only RJ was here. I have so many questions that only RJ can answer. Hey, guess who's here, sweetie? No, is it RJ? Mm-hmm. Bonjour, RJ. Anin. AGA. Ayan. How are you? And he says, Namino Eya. I am well. Gendash. And you? Oh, I guess the final point I wanted to make about Indian education. This term genocide. People love to throw that around. Oh, we were victims of genocide. It's like, no, we weren't. Yeah, people died. But even genocide means you killed off an entire generation. And to look at what happened during the contact with Europeans and the decisions made, yeah, I guess there were wars, but we don't look at the wars we had with the Sioux people and say, oh man, so much blood was shed. The Sioux people tried to genocide the Anishinaabe, or probably more accurately, we probably tried to kill them off. No, there were battles, and history has, whatever. There's a lot of blood on our hands, too, from killing Jamokeman, I'm sure. But, we should quit thinking of ourselves as a nation of people who are somehow descendants of a genocide. That's such a victim mentality, and I don't think it's that accurate. In fact, I think probably most of what we think we understand about Indian history is probably a fairy tale written by Freemasons. How much of our understanding of ourselves was informed by a secret society that publishes textbooks and produces movies? And, was there ever an agenda? Or can we just trust the so-called people who invaded and stole our land and oppressed us and genocided us? There's a mystery behind the boarding schools. What do you mean? Well, there's the narrative of the boarding school. And we all know, if you're old enough, people who went through the boarding schools with varying stories. And lately they've been discovering the remains of a lot. I think it's up to like 6,000 now. Children who died at boarding school and were buried in mass graves. Unmarked mass graves. It sounds like the Holocaust. But at the same time, We all have elders, ancestors who talk about with glowing, they call the boarding school the good old days. And they talk about how much fun they had and what a good school it was and how you learned and blah, 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 And how many exceptional people graduated from boarding school. All the professional athletes and the teachers and, the people who went on and made good lives for themselves and credit boarding school. But the thing is, we mentioned this the other day, when it comes to knowing our history, what the boarding school did was it took a whole generation away from their elders, and they brainwashed them and indoctrinated them. People have always known how to brainwash and indoctrinate a group. Mind control. Oh, you conspiracy theorist? No, this actually, I believe, happens. We call it assimilation or whatever, but they took the kids away from their community. They forbid them to identify at all with their families, their culture, the language, anything. Cut their hair. They made them look different, talk different, act different, and then indoctrinated them with their education. And, but just like non-Indian kids who went to boarding schools and stuff, there were real skills that were learned at boarding schools and whatever. So the kids got out. Now they can't understand the people who are the only ones who could possibly tell them that they could trust the story of, okay, what happened to my grandparents or my great-grandparents? How did we end up in Minnesota? Was there already Romanesque type buildings across the, all over the country, maybe buried in mud? If they're hiding anything about the history of Turtle Island, they had to shut up the natives. They had to make sure. So rather than, like they could have, this occurred to me too. When it comes to learning English, like the good side of the boarding schools, and the reason why we agreed to it, people forget that too. It's like, yeah, by the way, it was Indian people who sent their children to boarding schools. Yeah, every movie will show the resistance, but by and large, most people complied happily and were paid well to send their kids off to boarding school. They didn't want, the story is they didn't want their kids to be second-class citizens. And I never questioned that. They told us, well, the Indians said, look, you got to teach our children your ways, so they're the same as your children. But was that really part of their motivation? Maybe not. Maybe it was imposed on the people, because you could have taken the adults to a boarding school and taught them English, and they didn't take the grown-ups and give them all the same advantages that the white people had in their education. And they could have gone back and then started their own schools and taught their kids. They didn't do that. They took the kids. So the kids, I think the real purpose was to break up the family and to break up the community. Yeah, they had treaties, but who cares about that? What they needed was a whole generation of people who had no idea where they came from. Just like every white person, actually. If you press anybody, they can talk, they're pretty clear about their family story back to grandpa, great-grandpa, or great-grandma, But the whole story that every non-Indian person has about coming over from Norway or going through Ellis Island, it's very sketchy. Everybody's name got changed then too, for some weird reason. And, oh wow, this is just occurring to me, sweetie. What's that? It's not like white people didn't get assimilated into this English-speaking culture. Why is it every white person's story? I'm sorry for lumping up all immigrants. But there's so many stories where like, oh yeah, we're German, but we came to America through Ellis Island. And my great-grandfather, he changed his name from Schmidt to Schmidt because he didn't want people to know he was German. And, you know, yeah, we used to speak German, but we started speaking English in that same generational time that Native people were learning English in boarding schools, thereby cutting off, because Europeans also are so cut off from their families and understanding of history. Americans just had to trust what they were taught in school. They didn't speak the same language as their ancestors, us and everybody. So if there's evidence that there was a deliberate effort to, that is so brilliant, to brainwash everybody, to give them amnesia, cut them off from their ancestors. You know, we try to piece it together through books, interviews, you know, from the very people we blame everything, you know. It's like, okay, what, you know? I just don't know. I know it's a truth in my family. There's all these stories that go back to my grandparents. And not much with my grandfather's parents. And certainly not his grandparents. You know, don't know much about him. Because we can't even pronounce his name. You know, he's got an Indian name. Papa Go says, everyone that left somewhere was to get away from the powers that be. It's always been about freedom. Take your freedom and they'll have control. Yeah. I remember that when, you know, they used to talk about how America was, everyone came here to be free. You know, that's a really tricky thing to talk about. America is such a racist place. It's, you know, this is the worst place in the world. White supremacy. And, you know, you racists shouldn't be discriminate against people trying to get in over the border. And you go, do they think America sucks? Because, man, they're going to risk their lives to get here. I don't think all the people coming in share your view that America sucks. I think that in comparison, people see this place as being at least better than where they came from. You know, at least worth the risk and a commitment to abandon your community and your elders and everything about your country and your home and risk your life to come to America and maybe become a movie star. You know what happened to Arnold Schwarzenegger? Yeah, he doesn't care about your freedom. I know. Well, he's canceled. I've defended Arnold Schwarzenegger for years. Have you? Not really. But, like, remember when he cheated on his wife with a maid and then impregnated the maid but didn't recognize or support his son until he got caught years later? Yeah. Because he's a liar and sex addict or whatever and doesn't practice, you know, safe sex or whatever. So he's a scumbag. But when that happened, everyone was like, oh, this is going to destroy his legacy. You know, now Arnold Schwarzenegger has to go away in shame because he had a child out of wedlock. And I'm thinking, what? You think that's going to slow him down? There's no way. Schwarzenegger, he's a crusher. You know, anything that guy sets his mind to, he does and becomes the best in the world at it. With lifting weights, becomes the greatest weightlifter of all time, and the most famous for being a bodybuilder. You know, comes to America, can barely speak the language, decides to become an actor, becomes the #1 biggest action hero of the 1980s and maybe of all time. You know, goes into politics, becomes the governor of California. You know, win after win after win. The guy's on like a 40-year winning streak. And so, you know, whatever. But, you know, of course, now he's like, hey, if you don't want to get that vaccination, screw your freedom. Yeah, my father was a Nazi. Never mind that. You girly man, got your vaccination and screw your freedom. It's like, screw your freedom, Schwarzenegger. We should put you in jail. You weirdo. So, I don't like Schwarzenegger anymore. You can't be an immigrant to America, take over everything, become a scumbag in every way, and just drink off the riches of Hollywood. And then, you know, berate me for not trusting Anthony Fauci. Are you out of your mind? Anyway. Are you out of your mind, Arnold Schwarzenegger? He watches the show too, I know. I know, he wants to learn Ojibwe language and culture. Yeah, sweetie. Hey, Jessica's here. BOOZHOO, Jessica. Jessica's here, sweetie. Hey, BOOZHOO, Jessica. How you doing? She says, the real purpose was to remove those kids from their savage culture. Yeah. Gonna indoctrinate the children into polite society. You're gonna learn to be a real lady. My grandma used to tell a story how they sewed the first pants for ladies when she was in boarding school. She goes, women never wore pants. I never saw a person in pants until we were in boarding school. And we were on the basketball team. And in those days, you know, in our uniform, we had skirts. But every time you'd go up for a layup or go up for the rebound, you know, you jump up there, and as you come down, the boys could see your panties. And we're like, well, forget this. So we went into the home ec room, and we sewed up our skirts into these long, big old shorts. Skorts, we called them. Or pajamas. And they started playing basketball in these long, big old billowy shorts. She goes, yeah, it was the first time I ever saw women wearing men's shorts. I'm like, that's awesome, Grandma. And it's pretty cool that back in the 1930s, you were on a all-women's basketball team in high school that had uniforms and a fully stocked home ec room that had sewing machines that you could, you know, change up your uniforms, and you had the support of your coach, who was also a woman. You know, my grandmother had really good stories about her school experiences at Flandreau Indian boarding school. You know, she got to play sports. She got to learn all about sewing and knitting and cooking and a lot of home ec stuff. And, of course, the standard education. She went on to become a college graduate and a teacher herself. You know, those kids learned like foreign languages and how to play the piano, ice skating. There was a farm. She learned how to, you know, milk cows and stuff. The whole mission of the boarding school was not great. But the individual experience for a lot of these Indian kids was going to a school with a lot of your cousins and stuff. I guess at Flandreau, it was divided by gender. So, like, you might see your male cousins if you're a boy, but you wouldn't see your sister or your female cousins much. I don't know. Is that true too? There was a girl side and a boy side. In the movies, you make it look like they never, mixed. But I think they did. Because who watched the basketball games? And they had cheerleaders and stuff. It was much more modern than even in the 1930s. And then here's the mystery too. Who built the boarding schools? You look at Flandreau and it's a series. It's like a college. They have a number of magnificent, there's one main building with an auditorium. Multiple classrooms. I don't know. Was it 4 stories, 5 stories tall? And they also had like dormitories and a gym. Barns. What was Flandreau Indian boarding school before it became an Indian boarding school? We're talking like 1800s. In Flandreau, South Dakota, in the middle of a cornfield, somehow, the story is the Freemasons came out here and made millions of bricks and glass and, shipped out everything you need to build a school and a farm in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. That would eventually, at some point in the 1800s, be used as a residential school for Native American children. Where did they get all the workers? Flandreau's most people's never even heard of Flandreau. If it wasn't for the boarding school, that would not be a town anybody would know about. Flandreau, South Dakota. It's on the border of Minnesota, way down south. Grassroots Indy says, churches turned into boarding schools. Yeah, they would have churches there. That's the other mysterious thing. Where do these churches come from? Little house on the prairie comes up to Minnesota. Our winters are 6 months long. And somehow, as these settlers came in, because, we all know, I saw Dances with Wolves. Indians, we had nothing but wigwams and didn't even have horses until Columbus, is what they told me. But, what the textbooks will tell you is like, it was the Gilded Age. For this period of, 1750 to 1850. The Gilded Age, where the country was developed, and all these cities came up, and all these buildings and colleges. Concordia College in the middle of nowhere, built. You guys have all seen colleges. It's the only place in the Midwest where you're going to see, those kind of buildings built out of stone and with tunnels underground and enormous archways and stone steps, bell towers, that kind of stuff. And you go, what? How did you get a bell tower all the way out in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, South Dakota? Well, I don't know, but there's some speculation that before the Europeans came here and rewrote history, there might have been a lot of old buildings that looked like something you might see out of Rome, or anywhere, even every courthouse, whatever, that these buildings are way older than we think. And that there was a big flood that left mud everywhere and covered everything up. And the earliest photos you have, and who knows how old those photos actually are. Every old city looks like it's covered in mud. The old Wild West town or whatever, the first photographs, before they even invented streets, we had, just flat, muddy roads with horse and buggies on them. And all the way, just mud covered everything. Well, some of the speculation is that maybe the Freemasons got their name because they found Freemasonry. Somebody had built buildings all over the world, and the Freemasons came in, and their secret was they took credit for it. And they wrote all the history books, and they made up stuff. And they said, yeah, so North America was kind of the Garden of Eden. There were a bunch of cavemen running around called Indians. And then while we were putting them on reservations and boarding schools, we built, the Golden Gate Bridge. Or not the Golden, whatever. The Washington Monument. Yeah. The Mormon Tabernacle. Any city. Flandreau Indian boarding school. Jessica says, sometimes old army barracks as well. Yeah, we got these weird stories too about just past where we can know for sure. Like when our grandparents were children. Well, in the First World War, they had a prisoner of war camp. Even in World War II, in Bena, Minnesota. A prisoner of war camp. Somehow they took Germans and shipped them all the way in the middle of the country and plopped them down in the middle of Indian country and said, okay, don't leave. And they were like, leave? Where are we going to go? Like, okay, you guys can get out of jail for a while if you help us do some logging. And they were like, okay. And so World War II prisoners of war from Germany, a lot of them took up camp, became residents of northern Minnesota after the war was over. They unlocked prison gates and said, yeah, war's over, everyone. And the Germans were like, da? You couldn't give us a ride home? Like, a ride home? I don't even have a pickup. You guys are on your own. But come on, we taught you how to log. Go get a job. Something. I don't know. It's a big mystery. But, I mean, it's true. You can go and look at what used to be a prison camp. They turned it into a campground. It's behind the old gas. Missy. Missy's here. Missy's here, sweetie. Hey, Missy. Missy says, the school is still operational. Of course, things are good for the natives. Grandma Tootie wanted one last time, so he went. No kidding. That's cool. Yeah, I took Grandma Leona there one last time, too. And it was did Tootie have any fond memories of, well, if she wanted to go back? I wonder what Tootie had to say about her experience. I mean, she was older than my grandma, but still. Jessica says, I went to school in an old army barracks. You did? Wow. Did you have to wear a uniform? Let's see. Oh, you guys talking politics? Trudeau. Yeah, Trudeau's a real weirdo. You ever notice how that guy loves to wear costumes? Another one of these guys has got like an embarrassing blackface picture of himself. But like when he goes to India, he'll dress up like an Indian guy. He'll put on a sari or whatever. And he goes to Mexico, he puts on like a sombrero. And, he just dresses up. He loves to play dress up. And, this is not a conspiracy theory, he has fake eyebrows. He was at a news conference or something, and one of his eyebrows fell off. Apparently he doesn't like his thin eyebrows, or he's a transgendered. But the Prime Minister or King or whatever of Canada is a man who wears false eyebrows. I mean, yeah, say who cares if you want. But I think it says something about his personality. You can't trust a man who wears false eyebrows. La la la. He heckled a protester from Grassy Narrows at a fundraiser dinner. Thank you for your donation. As she's escorted out. What are we talking about? I don't know, sweetie. Missy said, yes, she said she lived and worked with the school nurse. She lived there and survived because she didn't have a choice. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of it's not exclusive to boarding schools having an abusive school experience. There's a lot of public schools that were also abusive, but she made a good relationship with the school nurse. Because that was the other thing, the people working at these boarding schools, they weren't all Colonel Pratt, the guy who said, the only good Indian's a dead Indian or whatever. Save the child by killing the Indian, Some of the people who worked at these schools are just locals, teachers, nurses, who were just there to help children. They weren't part of, any grand scheme. Yeah, my grandma talked about having a good relationship with her coach too. Because also these kids, and we forget that our grandparents, they didn't really, they had biological parents, but their teachers and the nurses and coaches and stuff saw them every day, year round. Christmas, your birthday, just everything. The relationship with the staff and the students in boarding schools is probably much more like summer camp or like a family, really. And you gotta consider too that maybe we should do a movie sometime, Missy, re-looking at the boarding schools. I mean, I don't want to be an apologist for the boarding schools, but you think about what schools are like now and how important it is, the relationships that kids have with the adults in their lives. And at these boarding schools, I don't know, man. At the end of the day, my grandmother did learn a lot of skills and was pretty confident. And, by the time she grew up, not because of anything her family did, but because of the boarding school. Because that was her family, I guess. For better or worse. How they learned to become an adult was boarding school staff. Or maybe on summers if they went home. I don't know how that worked. La, 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 la. But then you think about our generation. So our parents went to work. We were raised by TV and our teachers. Everything I learned about being a man, I learned from Paul Stanley. Huh, Paul? That's right. What'd you learn? Well, I learned that I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. That's right. You got to learn to rock and roll all night and party every day. Oh, whoa, 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 woo! Yeah. So don't forget about that, sweetie. Sweetie, it's 8:55 already. What? That's insane. How's that possible? I think we forgot what we were doing when we were getting kicked off. Did you want to get up here? Not really. Because I'm over here. Oh, that's right. Sorry. I was talking to Michael. Hey, what's going on? Hi. Sometimes I get you and Natasha confused. We look so much alike. I know. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Stanley. Hello, everybody. How you doing? And Michael Lyons. Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching the show. And over here is Natasha. I get confused. I could play a song. No. Why don't you just sign out? Okay. What do we talk about today? Nothing. Yeah. Started talking about AIM and I lost track of time. We didn't talk to anybody on the phone. All right. Now I feel stupid. Don't feel stupid. All right, you guys. Miigwech, Biz and Dawieg. Thank you for listening. Sorry I didn't get around to talking about anything. If you'd like to support the show, there's PayPal and Patreon, GoFundMe. And if you'd like to order books by Michael Lyons, okay, here's something I can do. Michael Lyons has a book called Dog in My Ingen. And Dog in My Ingen, the dog speaks English, and the Ingen, or wolf, speaks Ojibwe. Here's the deal. I'm going to live with you guys. If you sign up, on Patreon is like, if you become a patron saint, if you sign up and automatically pay $10 a month, I think it's 10, maybe it's 20. It's probably 20. We'll send you a copy of Dog in My Ingen. Or, for the same amount of money, you can just buy the book once by clicking the link on Amazon.com. Why would anybody sign up on Patreon if they can just buy the book for the same amount of cost just for 1 month subscription? Well, maybe they believe in the show or something. Yeah, right. So, no, just kidding. If you'd like to support the show, click the links in the description below. And there's many more books by Michael Lyons, the rockstar cartoonist. Get out of here. And, yeah. So, anyway, let's call it a show, sweetie. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can get rid of this picture. Miigwech Ganawabieg. Thank you for watching. BOOZHOO NANABOOZHOO. The podcast with no music. There it is. Okay. Hey. Ooh. I love that riff right there. Yeah, thank you for watching the show. I am NANABOOZHOO. Over here, the lovely and the talented Natasha. Okay, miigwech, everybody. See you tomorrow. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Maybe we can plan ahead a little better tomorrow. Yeah, we'll plan something. Tune in tomorrow for a show that we planned something about. Over here, the rockstar cartoonist, Michael Lyons. Say goodbye, Michael. Goodbye, Michael. Oh, what a new one. Ikawaba min, minawa. Yep, I will see you again. And I will see you again. If I could ever see you through this graphic, through this crazy cartoon. Miigwech Ganawabieg. Thank you for watching. And I will see you again. Ikawaba min, minawa. Sweetie, I wanted to teleport. See you tomorrow.